Yo, I'm Literal, aka Mega Blitz. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the best way to play Snorlax Stall in our current format. Now, for those that don't know, I've been playing Snorlax Stall pretty much exclusively for the last 4 to 5 months. I've played it in tons of online tournaments. I've won multiple league challenges with it. I've done well at cups with it. I've played it in almost every live stream that I've done here on YouTube. Snorlax has quickly become kind of my go-to deck when I go to any tournament, really. I've really become very fond of how Snorlax Stall plays, and I feel like it's very underrated, but extremely good with its matchup spread in the current format. So today, we're going to be looking at what I think to be the best 60 for Snorlax Stall. Let's get right in to that deck list. Alrighty, here are at that deck list. Starting off with Snorlax here, with that ability block, which is how the deck really kind of sets up its kind of stall tactic and its control element. Ability block says as long as Pokemon's in the active spot, your opponent's active Pokemon can't retreat. We are never really attacking in this deck, so collapse is something that we don't do, so we're just playing it for that block ability, making it so Pokemon can't retreat. Some other key Pokemon in the deck here, we are playing 2 copies of Klefki with its ability Mischievous Lock. As long as Pokemon is in the active spot, basic Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponents, have no abilities except for Mischievous Lock. Now this is really helpful into decks like Gardevoir, into decks that play Petra Run EX, and a couple things like that. It helps against the Raging Bolt matchup and a couple other things as well. Now, the reason why Klefki is so good is because Petra Run EX absolutely destroys Stall. Petra Run EX being able to just put any bench Dark-type Pokemon except Petra Run EX right up into the active spot. It's poisoned, and it gets around that block ability. But Klefki shuts off that Petra Run Subjugating Chains ability with its Mischievous Lock ability. So the plan is to kind of shred its switch effects and kind of force our opponent to burn through a lot of their resources quickly by forcing them to take 1 prize knockouts and things like that, and then finish them off with Klefki, and they go, okay, I trapped your Squawk ability, or I trapped your Petra Run, you can't move anything because Mischievous Lock, figure it out. So that's kind of the thought behind the Klefki there. It's also helpful into some other things as well. We also have 1 copy of Mimikyu here with the ability Safeguard, prevent all damage on this Pokemon by attacks from your Pokemon's EX and Pokemon V. This is just really helpful into anything that is, you know, like Raging Bolt. If we can just get their bench full of Raging Bolt EXs and Ogre Pawns and then just put Mimikyu up and say, okay, figure it out. So that card's helpful for a lot of reasons like that. Really good into the Reggie-Drogo matchup and stuff like that as well. And then Pidgeot V for our Sealstone user. And the reason we picked this is because it has an ability Vanishing Wings. Once during your turn, if Pokemon's on your bench, you may shuffle it and all attached cards back into your deck. So not only do we just get rid of the liability of Pidgeot V, but also on top of that, we can never deck ourselves because we have that Pidgeot V just constantly being able to put itself back into the deck, which can come in handy in a pinch if the game goes on long enough. Now, for the supporters here, we have 3 copies of Arven, 3 Penny, 2 Eri, 2 Boss, 2 Misfortune Sisters, 1 Cyllene, 1 Iono, 1 Worker, 1 Erika's Invitation, 1 Colress Tenacity, 1 Team Cheer, and 1 Xerosic Machinations. Now, the only card that I really want to point out of these supporters here is actually going to be the Colress Tenacity, being able to find that Stadium and Energy card. And the reason I want to point it out is because we are playing for our Ace Pick of Toys that Enriching Energy, as long as this card is attached to a Pokemon, provides a colorless energy, so we can retreat out of our Klefki or our Mimikyu if we have to. But when you attach the card from your hand, you draw 4 cards. Now, since we're not playing Rotom V with that instant charge ability, the Enriching Energy really helps out in that regard. For the other trainer cards, we have 4 Nest Ball, 4 Pokegear, 4 Counter Catcher, 4 Accompanying Flute, 4 Boxed Order, I'll come back to those, 2 Pal Pad, 2 Night Stretcher, 1 Hisuian Heavy Ball, 1 Switch Cart, 1 Forest Sealstone, 1 Defiance Vest, 1 Luxurious Cape, 1 Handheld Fan, and then for our stadiums, Jubilee Village and Artisan. Jubilee Village is something I do want to touch because it isn't played a lot. Once during each player's turn, the players may shuffle their hand into their deck and draw 5 cards. If they do, their turn ends. So kind of just shuffle, get some nice cards, kind of helping out. Same thing with not having that instant charge Rotom. Now, the card I want to go back to is that Boxed Order. And the reason is because this card is very important in how this deck functions without that Rotom drawing all these cards. Search your deck for up to 2 item cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, shuffle your deck, your turn ends. So being able to just find 2 item cards is really helpful. You play Boxed Order, maybe find a Boxed Order for the second turn or your following turn if you need to kind of get more resources. But that second card, it can be a Counter Catcher if you need it, that Nest Ball, the Accompanying Flute, a Pal Pad, a Night Stretcher, Switch Cart, whatever it may be. you can grab it, which is pretty helpful as well. And the nice thing is too is Arven lets you grab the boxed order. So you go, okay, Arven, get a boxed order, get my Forest Sealstone, Nest Ball, Pidgeot V, attach Forest Sealstone, use Sealstone if you need to, or if you want to that turn, Vanishing Wings, put it back, boxed order, get 2 cards, pass. And then you kind of start setting up from there. So it's really unique in how the boxed order functions, and it's also pretty cool too because we don't have that Rotom just sitting on the bench as a 2-prize liability, having to just burn through pennies and pick it up later and things like that. So really excited to showcase this deck and how it really functions without the Rotom and having that boxed order kind of thing going on. But before we go into that, I want to look at some of the matchup percentages because in the intro I do say that its matchup spread is kind of insane, and this is what I was talking about. We got a 64% win rate against Charizard, 60 against Drogo, 62 against Gardevoir, 60 almost against Dragapult Iron Thorns, 70 plus into Lost Box, 70 almost into Raging Bolt. Cloth isn't great, but that's where that Klefki comes in to kind of help that matchup a little bit. We have a great Goldenga matchup at 75%, 65-ish percent in Ceruledge, a 40-ish matchup percentage into Artrulodon, 72% matchup into Miraidon. Lugia isn't great because we're not playing Temple of Sinnoh anymore, but you can always just kind of put in Temple of Sinnohs if you're worried about Lugia a lot. Hydreigon and things like Turbo Roaring Moon are bad matchups, but with that Klefki, it really helps out for like subjugating chains, kind of getting locked out entirely is pretty key. So having a really good matchup spread into a lot of the top decks, especially being things like Regidrogo and Charizard and Gardevoir, which tend to be a lot of the top decks right now, I feel like is very important. So now let's jump right in to that gameplay. Already here at that gameplay with our Snorlax Stall deck, boxed orders, Klefkis and all, ready to go. At the coin flip here, it is going to be that heads here. Our opponent did win the coin flip. They can decide if they want to go first or second. Honestly, going second is kind of always preferred. I feel like playing Stall. There's very little times where I feel like going first is kind of needed. Going second is better because you just get to play supporter, which is really how the deck wants to function. Taking prize cards and evolving is something we care about. Our opponent playing Charizard EX, and we see that Bidoof playing that little bit of a barrel angel line of the barrel. Barrel? That's always fun. The barrel engine line, a Suited Heavy Ball coming down, gonna get that Snorlax here. We're gonna put that right under the bench here. Nest Ball coming down, gonna get another Snorlax here. Accompanying Flute, gonna hit the Pidgey, but actually I don't want them to have the Pidgey. I don't want the Quick Search out, ready to go. So we're just gonna elect to not have that on the bench here. We're gonna grab Erika's Invitation. And before we do anything, we're gonna Misfortune Sisters, hit that Super. We do see a Squavit there and Pheasantipity EX. So we do see that they have kind of that combo going. We're going to get a boxed order here off of our boxed order and a Pokegear here. And then boxed order makes us end our turn. So got a boxed order ready for next turn and a Pokegear. They take the knockout on the Klefki. Not too big of a deal. We have Counter Catcher to pull up their Bidoof and start stall blocking with that block ability. So gonna Infernal Rain, gonna get some energies out. Burning Darkness coming down, taking a knockout on our Klefki, putting us to a 6-5 split. Now, we will always be behind prize cards at this point, unless we see a Dusknoir or something come down. But Counter Catcher going to come down for that Bidoof. Pokegear as well. We're going to get the Colress Tenacity here. We're going to grab ourselves the Jubilife Village and the Enriching Energy. We're going to play that Jubilife Village, attach the Enriching Energy, draw 4 cards. Going to be able to get ourselves into another boxed order, and we're going to hit an Accompanying Flute. We're going to get both Radzard and that Squavit right onto the bench here. Nest Ball coming down, going to get ourselves another Snorlax here. Now, we could Jubilife Village, but I wanted a boxed order, and I don't have to grab another boxed order because I already have one in hand. So, we're just going to grab an Accompanying Flute here. And I think I grabbed a Nest Ball as well to get another 4th Snorlax setup or that Mimikyu if I need it. Kind of depends. The Radzard is kind of interesting to bench because if they start using things like Dusknoir, Radzard becomes a little bit easier to attack with for them. But if they don't play Dusknoir or don't take a lot of prize cards, that's easy trapping fodder for us, especially things like the Squavit and the Babero that they're playing in the deck. Even Pidgeot EX sometimes is something you can just pull up and be like, okay, figure it out. So, pretty interesting. But they can also attack with those, so you got to be a little bit careful here. We're going to see the Ultra Ball come out, get the Babero here, and so they're going to have access to the Industrious Incisors. But first, rip that Iono. Going to get themselves into a Charmeleon, so evolve their Charmander into Charmeleon. And then go from there. Bench that Pidgey as well. Going to play a Collapse Stadium. Going to be able to remove a Pokemon from their bench. Going to move that Squavit, which is actually kind of interesting. I would have rather seen them remove the Radzard, because Barrel or that Charmeleon can easily take care of a Mimikyu if I bench it. So I think them actually getting rid of Radzard is a little more important, because the Squavit is something that has a 1 retreat cost if you do get to retreat at any point. And if you're not playing Dusknoir, Radzard becomes extremely difficult to attack with. But Nest Ball going to come down for us here. We're going to attach the handheld fan, attach the Forest Seal Stone to our Pidgeot V, use that Star Alchemy ability here. Going to be able to look through the deck and see what we want to grab here. And we're going to grab ourselves that Penny here. And then I'm going to be able to use that Vanishing Wings ability to be able to put Pidgeot V and our Forest Seal Stone right back into the deck here. We're going to go Misfortune Sister. We're going to hit Super Rod and Unfair Stamp. And we do see a Duskull in there, so we do know that they do have capabilities of that Dusknoir. Boxed Order going to come out, get another Boxed Order and a Counter Catcher for us, so we can still kind of keep pulling things up. And the reason I grabbed Counter Catcher, because I have Boss in hand, but I want to use that Penny instead here, because I want to be able to pick up that Snorlax that has Enriching Energy on it. So we're going to Nest Ball, get our 4 Snorlax Penny, pick up the Snorlax with Enriching Energy, attach it again so I can draw 4 more cards here. Going to be able to bench another Snorlax if I want to. So we have 4 Snorlax out ready to go. But first, attach the Defiance Vest. So it's going to take 40 less damage for my opponent's attacks. Boxed Order going to come out, which is going to grab us Counter Catcher and Pokegear. Now, we do have to be a little bit careful, because we are starting to get pretty low in our deck for cards, but we have Team Yellow's Cheer, which allows us to kind of shuffle supporters and stuff back into the deck. Counter on top of that with Palpad and Cyllene, we're able to kind of keep putting things back into the deck. But like I said, we also have Pidgeot V. Now, the Rotom version of Snorlax Stall doesn't really play Pidgeot V anymore, which is why you kind of heavily focus on the Team Yellow's Cheer, the Cylenes, and the Palpads and things like that, and you kind of play a little bit more of like a Turbo Stall, I guess, in a way, as opposed to this, where it's a little bit slower, more methodical, which is kind of interesting. Turtle Scenario coming out for our opponent here. Going to pick up that Barrel. Going to be able to attack with their Charizard EX here. We're going to use our handheld fan. Going to move that energy to that Charmeleon. I don't really want energies on the Radzard now that I know they play Dusknoir in the deck. And I don't want energies on Pidgeot EX, because that is a Pokemon that I can trap in the active spot pretty easily, because they have to, like I said, put energies onto it to attack. Even though it has a free retreat cost, you still can't retreat. So gonna bench that Snorlax here. Counter Catcher gonna come out, pull up that Radiant Charizard. Pokegear gonna grab Xerosic Machinations. We're gonna play Xerosic Machinations, forcing our opponent to discard 5 cards from their hand, because they have 8. So we're gonna discard 5, going down to 3. Now I'm really excited, because there's gonna be a new card coming out, that Banette in a new set, which basically forces your opponent to shuffle the 3 cards from their hand into their deck. So you pair that with Xerosic Machinations, discard down to 3, shuffle. You are now literally top decking. I hope you can get out of it. So I'm pretty excited for that, and I'm going to see if I can try to build a control deck around that and kind of see what goes on. But our opponent just kind of discarding anything they don't really want, which it doesn't really matter to us what they discard. The important thing is they're discarding cards, which pairs really nicely for Ionos and things like that, and kind of just making them have as least amount of cards as possible. The least the resources, the better. But also, Erika's Invitation would have been really good to kind of pull up that mana fee. But like I said, I'm not too worried about it, because I still have Pidgeot EX that I can trap in the active spot. And I have Radiant Charizard right now as well. So we're just going to have to see what kind of goes on with all that. Our hand, not too bad. We got Boss, Arven, Iono, Palpad. We still have a Counter Catcher. So if they, get out of this Radiant Charizard and get into a Pidgeot, or they get into their Charizard EX, doesn't matter too much. We have Counter Catcher. Our opponent going to Thornton into Cleffa here, which is kind of interesting. I'm not too sure they're trying to draw more cards or what the plan really is there. They could have went into something like a Duskull if they had that, and kind of evolved into a Dusknoir and then Curse Blast. I'm not too sure, but nonetheless, we're just gonna kind of rip the Arven here, grab an Accompanying Flute, and grab that Luxurious Cape. Now, Luxurious Cape is an interesting card, and we're gonna get the Lumineon via that Accompanying Flute, so we're gonna slam that right on to the bench here. But we're also trapping the Cleffa. They can Grasping Draw and draw more cards all they want. It doesn't matter to us. That actually kind of helps us, if anything. But the interesting thing about Luxurious Cape is it gives your Pokemon plus 100 HP, but it makes it allows your opponent to take an extra prize card when knocked out. So I'm in a position where my opponent has 4 prize cards left, and I don't really want them to have access to taking extra prize cards right now. So just not putting Luxurious Cape on anything is pretty helpful at this point. Our opponent going to discard that Dusknoir, which is kind of interesting, from their hand here to grab another Pokemon. But the Collapse Stadium's kind of making it really difficult for them. They have to be able to remove that Collapse Stadium to get another just a bit or another Pokemon on the bench. But they're gonna have Canceling Cologne, be able to retreat out of the Cleffa, evolve into a Charizard EX, Infernal Rain, fail to find. They're gonna be able to attack for some big damage here. But first, rip the Iono with that hand disruption, getting us into 6 cards. We're gonna have Artisan, Accompanying Flute, Night Stretcher, Burning Darkness for only 140 though, because we haven't taken a knockout. They usually do 180, but that Defiance Vest actually making it a little bit better for us because they're only going to be able to hit for 140 here. So Accompanying Flute going to be able to come down. We're just looking at the discard pile real quick. We're going to give them that Duskull here, have something that we can just kind of put down on the bench. I don't want them to get another Charizard active or anything like that. Eri, take a look at the hand, Fezandipity, Dusclops, and then Artisan going to come down. We're going to get that Mimikyu here. And the reason I don't mind giving up this Snorlax with a Defiance Vest on it, because here next turn I'll be able to have access to a little bit more resources. I'm going to have Arven, I'll have Penny so I can pick up stuff. I can also force my opponent to retreat out of that Charizard EX with my Mimikyu because they can't take a knockout into it, and kind of force them to just use their Dusclops or Dusknoir to kind of deal damage to anything, which is kind of interesting. They're going to have that Dusclops, however, in hand, which is going to open up that Cursed Blast, be able to take a knockout on the active Snorlax here. Going to give us a prize card, taking one themselves. So we're going to go to a 5-3 split here. So we're going to take a prize card, getting Hisuian Heavy Ball off the prize cards, which is not really what we wanted. Kind of looking for anything else off of our prize cards, really, but not too big of a deal. Going to bench that Fezandipity EX here. They're going to have access to flip the script to be able to draw 3 cards here. Boss's Order is going to be able to pull up our Snorlax, unfortunately, and then going to be able to Burning Darkness for 210, KOing our Snorlax with our Enriching Energy attached as well, I might point out. So our opponent is at 2 prize cards. We're at a 5-2 split here, and we're in a little bit of a pickle. We have our Snorlax, we have a Mimikyu, but we don't really have much of anything else. Like I said, we're going to use the Hisuian Heavy Ball. Take a look at the prize cards. We see a Penny, Counter Catcher in there, which is not ideal. Artisan, just take a look at the deck. See what we got going on in here. Got Counter Catcher, got Erika's Invitation and stuff. And we're going to use our Arven here. Grab ourselves that Counter Catcher in the Luxurious Cape just to thin the deck a little bit. So Counter Catcher, and we're going to pull up that Fezandipity EX. The Lumineon's fine, or the Cleffa's fine, but pulling up the Fezandipity EX is also okay. We're going to put the Luxurious Cape on the Mimikyu, and the reason I put it on there is because our opponent is bench locked, so they can't take a knockout on our Mimikyu unless they start literally... Actually, you can't. Unless they have another Turo scenario or something. Taking a knockout on this Mimikyu is something they can't do. So we're just using this Snorlax in our active spot to buy ourselves a turn, so we can Penny, pick up the Snorlax, shove the Mimikyu in the active spot, and pretty much just force them to deal with it, and they have to have another Canceling Cologne, and if they don't, then we just win. They're going to have Turo Scenario again, unfortunately. Going to play the Artisan, just kind of look through the deck here, see what they have left. Going to shuffle up and fail to find. They're going to use that Burning Darkness attack for 210. Take a knockout on our Snorlax here, and then we're going to put up our Mimikyu with that Luxurious Cape on, and then we're kind of in a position where we don't really need anything else. We can just boss. We're kind of hoping for maybe Erika's Invitation is pretty good at this point. Nothing else really can hurt us. So we're just going to boss his orders. We're just going to pull up the Lumineon V here, forcing our opponent to have more energy, force him to retreat, and things like that. Pass to our opponent here and just see if they have it. If they can get themselves into another Canceling Cologne, if they play 2 copies of Canceling Colognes, then they might have it. I will say a Charizard deck playing Canceling Cologne and then having 2 Turo Scenario is kind of insane. Something you don't really see that often. Maybe you see 1 Turo Scenario or they recycle it. But a lot of Charizard decks definitely don't play Canceling Cologne. So this Charizard player is teched for the Stall matchup or the Pidgeot control matchup. They don't want to be playing against this and losing against it. Okay, they only play 1 Turo Scenario, so they did recycle that with a PAL Pad, which is another tech card that a lot of people have been playing to beat control. If they're playing Team Yo's Cheer in here, it might be over, folks. I'm not going to lie to you. But we're just going to have to see what our opponent's cooking up here. Going to use Buddy Boy Poffin, fail to find, quick search, grab something. Thornton going to be able to come down here. Going to be able to play that Thornton 2 times because when they PAL padded, they put in Turtle Scenario and Thornton back into the deck. So Thornton going to be able to switch out a Pokemon here. Radzard going onto the bench. Switching out that Cleffa. Once again, I still feel like Duskull might have been a better choice, but not too sure. And we're in a position where we're just going to pass back to our opponent. We don't really have anything else to do. It's kind of in their hands. They're going to pass back to us, and then we're going to have Eri. We'll rip the Eri. We'll discard the double rare candy. Just shut off any accessibility that would have to maybe a Dusknoir or a third Charizard or maybe another Pidgeot or anything. And we're just going to pass back here. No reason to play the Iono because we don't want them to have more cards in deck. We're trying to deck them out. Pass back to our opponent. They're going to be able to draw for turn. And I don't think they have anything else going on here, so they're going to pass back to us. We're going to have PAL Pad, pass back to them. They're going to draw for turn. They're going to have 3 cards left in deck here, so we're almost there. They're going to pass back. We're going to have Erika's Invitation. We'll hit the Erika's Invitation. We'll just bench that Pheasantipity, slide it back up into the active spot, pass back to our opponent here. They're going to draw for turn. Not really have much going on. They can't really do anything. They're trying to just piece together anything they have left. Gonna draw for turn, have 1 card left in deck, pass back to us here, and we're just gonna pass back to them. They might play on Iono just to kind of be a little annoying if they want or something. Technical Machine Evolution coming down, and then just pass back to us. They have nothing they can do, so we're gonna pass back and win the game in true Snorlax Stall style, decking our opponent out, causing them to have to constantly burn through resources, and forcing our opponent not only to have to just recycle Turo and canceling Cologne. This Charizard opponent was ready for the Stall matchup, but Snorlax Stall still able to prevail. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like when Snorlax Stall is played properly in this current format, it is a force to be reckoned with. I really enjoy Snorlax Stall, and if you haven't tried Snorlax Stall or you're looking to, I genuinely recommend trying this 60. I really feel like this is the best 60 going into the current metagame before rotation. So now let's jump right in to that outro. Alrighty guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. If you guys want to try the deck list that I played in today's video, I'll make sure to put it in the description below, ready for copy paste into TCG Live. And of course, while you're down there, make sure to leave a like, smash the subscribe button. I really would appreciate it, especially because in the last 90 days, it says only about 30% of my viewers are actually subscribed here on the channel. So just do me a favor, scroll down real quick and see if you're actually subscribed and on the channel. So once you do that and you're actually subscribed to the channel, then you can be like these awesome 8 people here and become a member here on the channel as well, with some exclusive perks like emotes, photo status updates, priority reply to comments, and much, much more. And I want to thank everybody for the continued support throughout the year of 2024 and going into the year of 2025. I have a whole lot of big things planned, not only just as a competitive Pokemon player, but as a content creator as well. I have a whole lot of plans and just cool ideas kind of going through for the year of 2025, and I'm really excited to share them all with you throughout the year. So now, I'll see you all in the next one. Peace!